You know, I never noticed until I started doing a complete Doctor Who rewatch in the midst of a global pandemic just how many Doctor Who stories involve plague. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. I tried a different camera angle yesterday. I hated it, so I'm back to this, I think a little bit tweaked. But anyway, Terminus. The basic plot of Terminus has the TARDIS crew arriving on board a plague ship. It's a ship that promptly docks with the titular Terminus, a station at the very center of the known universe. And that, of course, will become very important in tomorrow's viewing. But in any case, our characters find themselves on board a ship filled with space lepers. Now that's space lepers, L-E-P-E-R-S, not space leopards. No, the space leopard doesn't show up until nearly the end of the second part. So we get both. The story is written by the same person who wrote Warrior's Gate, and it has several similarities in style, certainly in tone. But the most interesting thing about this is all of the problems that happened behind the scenes. The director of this story was noted as never having missed a deadline, never having run over time. And yet there was a BBC union strike that radically affected the execution of filming this story. Sets were erected in the wrong place. There were problems with the costume designs due to miscommunications, where the costume designer thought that he was building something that just had to look good. He didn't realize that this armor was going to actually be used in combat, and it made way too much noise on camera. There were time overruns, there were just so many troubles, and so a lot of the scenes in this story got almost no rehearsal and were recorded on the first take. But for all of that, it holds together pretty well. Another interesting thing about the story structurally, although the events of the story are triggered by Turlough sabotaging the TARDIS under duress from the Black Guardian, Turlough and Tegan are promptly separated from the Doctor and Nyssa and sidelined for basically the entire story. It keeps cutting back to the two of them as they're stranded on another part of the ship and working their way through, but Tegan and Turlough never interact with any of the guest actors. It's just the two of them together trying to get back to the TARDIS. Meanwhile, on the other side of the story, you've got the Doctor trying to figure out what's going on. You have Nyssa, who becomes infected with the plague, and that causes her to get increasingly fevered and exhausted, which is all well enough, but given that she starts the story in her newer costume but with the jacket off, as she gets increasingly fevered, she starts dropping articles of clothing. This is her last story, and by the end of it, she pretty much just winds up in a nightgown, in a shift. When actress Sarah Sutton was asked about it, she smiled and said, "That was my gift to all the men watching the show." So, on behalf of all the men watching the show, thank you so much. And now that I've been a creepy old man, I think I'm going to just go ahead and call it a day. I will see you tomorrow.